went that way. When it got to 10 orders, you would never think it was going to go to 20.
Hmm.
And it's not, it's a business that we don't have an advertising department. It's
Right.
not like there's a customer acquisition cost, and we know that if we spend this many dollars, we'll see this many clients. We can't really study any parallel. There's not really someone that's been on the same journey, another company, that we could maybe map a trajectory against. So we were always caught out by our sales. We just did not know that would happen. Myself, I mean, we're complete lunatics for what we do. It's not like, it's not just a gig. It's not just we're starting a business to start a business or to make a few dollars. It's kind of to support our habits in a sense, right?
Right.
Because if we keep playing with our toys, we have to make this place successful, right? So, and I think that's sort of infectious. Yeah, and I started driving all these things: 308s, 328s, 348s at the time. It was just a 355 had just come out, and I have to say, I was like, they're great looking, but some of this stuff is kind of not quite what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always up against a 911 for me, and it was because I drove that 964. So I drove a 92 mint green 964. It was the very first car I drove as an employee of that place, and then everything I drove after that was just kind of not as good. I'm Mazen Fawaz, and this is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
We took a journey with Singer a couple of years ago now when Rob Dickinson was on the program, and it was such an enjoyable ride that we thought we'd bring back the other half of the duo, the dynamic duo that puts Singer on the road. And, he's got an incredible story to tell, but beyond that, we'll probably bump into him again at the Pebble Beach Concours in August. What a pleasure to have you on the program. Welcome in, Maz.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you. You've just returned from Japan with Rob.
Yeah.
And this has become a remarkable market for Singer. It is now one of a dozen countries where you have a global partnership. And what a crazy idea if we think back to, you're almost 5 years, right, as the CEO.
Yep.
And to think now, to know what you were then as a car company, and to know that you've just returned from Japan, where the world is going crazy over Singers. What a twist and turn and ride it has been for you, Maz.
It's been something else. Yeah. It's been something else. It's been absolutely fascinating. Not straightforward in any way, but just it's a fantasy in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty cool to get to do what we do with Rob. I don't know that I could write a better set of circumstances. So yeah, it's great.
And as the song goes, you're big in Japan.
We are. I didn't, we went over there for the first time last year, first time ever for me in November, and I didn't really know if anybody had heard of us there. There's quite a cultural wall. I think a lot of the media that had taken a look at our work just really never made it over there. It doesn't get translated into the language, or to some degree into the culture. So I wasn't really sure that we would have much, that anyone had really sort of knew about us, which I found entirely incorrect. We're pretty popular over there, but we just didn't exist over there, and you have to make a commitment. Right. For Japan, I think for foreign businesses, you need to commit. You need to be there. You need to be available. You need to get to know people and find the right folks on the ground, which we found. It couldn't be better. The partnership that we signed and the people over there are in the group that we did a deal with. It's called Corns. They've built this racetrack. I don't know if you've seen this Nagaragawa Club in the mountains.
The
yeah, that's theirs. It's actually how we found them. is
Wow.
someone showed me the track. I said, I have to know who carved a fabulous thing out of a mountain. I'm so
Oh, it's
curious who
something
did
else.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out to be the company that owns the distribution for Ferrari and Rolls Royce and a bunch of other cool stuff. So yeah, it was sort of a match made in heaven.
Unbelievable. Um, what does that mean to you to be able to go into yet another country? You've delivered cars to owners in more than 30 countries now.
Yeah, yeah. It's we have some sort of big markets, the U.S., England, Australia, Hong Kong. The rest are kind of scattered, and so if you just plot them on a map, you see sort of where we just don't really do anything. And it's a type of I think like any sort of luxury brand or luxury good, people need to see and touch these things, right? I mean, they're very expensive. Um, and if you're not available, then you're not available, right? And so in the markets where we have really excelled, it's because cars are on the ground and people are there, and our sort of the culture of our business is there represented in one form or another. So it's just if we the idea with Japan is we have to go and plant some roots, and that was what that was a couple of weeks back.
You have to see the singer to really feel it, right? Isn't that the idea?
Well, yeah, I mean the thing it is a it sort of looks like an old 911, doesn't it? But there's a collection of details there. Not that everyone is really conversant in all of the details. An outsider might not know what it takes to do what we do, but when you see it in person, you realize it's a tremendous effort. Even if you don't know exactly what made it all up. And that has quite a profound effect on people when they see when you get to actually see it, sit in it, drive it. It all kind of comes out.
You've you recently delivered your 300th restoration since 2009. Could you believe?
That's
Go ahead.
that's the 300 classic, but we
Right.
had we have the DLS cars, which were 75 of them. So it's actually now we're about
Now
400. Yeah,
400. Right.
yeah.
Okay. So let's take the 400 number. It's got to be a crazy notion when you think back to telling Rob Dickinson that maybe you shouldn't, you've done one car, you're working on the second one, you know, we got a business here, but now we have 400 copies.
Yeah. Well, back then we thought we were going to do five.
Really?
So
It was just five.
yeah, ever like, and that would have been like climbing Everest. So our version of a business back then wasn't. It did not see this, right? And
Right.
it went that way. When it got to 10 orders, you would never think it was going to go to 20.
Hmm.
And it's not, it's a business that we don't have an advertising department. It's
Right.
not like there's a customer acquisition cost, and we know that if we spend this many dollars, we'll see this many clients. We can't really study any parallel. There's not really someone that's been on the same journey, another company that we could maybe map a trajectory against. So we were always caught out by our sales. We just did not know that would happen. Um, and which is great. It's very positive, but it's also negative in that you're not prepared. You're not prepared to deliver, right? Which is really the transformation we've been through in the last uh, not quite to maybe 2.5 years. We've really transformed as a business that we've sort of accepted the level of sales it's going to continue. We understand our products, we understand our engineering, and we're looking down the road now instead of to the end of the week, which is what we were doing prior.
So you're able to plan, and you have a kind of a portfolio that that you can attack.
That's right. Yeah.
It's,
Now we're thinking many years out.
how many?
Um,
How many years are you thinking out?
10. Yeah.
Really? Really?
Yeah. I mean, we have sort of sketched in past that, but it's low fidelity sketching beyond that, things that can move around, but we have to get well ahead of it now. So it's like I said, it's kind of it's kind of a fantasy. It's pretty cool.
What do you
It's
need?
a real business now.
What do you need to do as a business to transform to meet that 10-year horizon? How much do you have to change that dynamic duo that I alluded to?
Well, you know what? A few years back, it was time to mature the company. Accept that sales will continue. Accept that if we continue to deliver these things that we love out into the world, people will keep buying them. That was something that, you know, I tell you, nothing we do is designed because we think we can sell it. It's really designed for us personally, you know, for Rob and for myself. And we have this formula that if we make things that we love, there's just sort of stroke of luck that other people seem to want them, right? I always say there's a lot of, you know, terrible music in the world, but I bet the people that wrote them love it. In our case, you know, we're very fortunate that it seems to resonate, right?
It's a great
And so
analogy.
it's a repeatable formula. So we had to mature the business operationally, and we went from I think about 120 people to 650 people in 2.5 years, and went from 30 I want to say 35,000 feet of space to about a quarter million, between here and England, in order just to accommodate our backlog. Forget the future, just the cars that we have on order that we have to deliver. So, and what that forces us to do is really understand scientifically the operation from a not just from a practical perspective, but in the finance department, and really, you know, it's not a hot rod outfit anymore in that sense. Um, and dialing up engineering, dialing up the finance department, that, you know, allows us to do that. So now when we set a forecast that says, okay, we know the type of stuff we want to do in the future, we really start to understand what it's going to take to deliver that. How long is it going to take? What's the team? What's it cost? When will we deliver it? You know, really, you know, it's not just, you know, cool ideas. They have basis now in reality, and a lot of data, um, that helps lay the path for that. Especially if you're doing if cars are global, we have a regulated environment we work in. It's not like a Southern California hot rod anymore. You can just make whatever you want, right? It has to work in around the world.
You're a real grown-up company now.
Well, I mean, partially, yeah. I think that, you know, from a product perspective, it's very childish, right? It's very sort of self-indulgent, but it's a repeatable formula. But yeah, we had to, you know, we brought in, we it was interesting in recruiting. We brought in people from Harley Davidson. Um, if you think about maybe the next largest car outfit in the US, it's probably Tesla. So, which is, you know, light years beyond what we are in terms of complexity and size. So it's not that easy to hire here in the space that we're in. England is very easy, or a lot easier rather. So we it was really a lot of talent from Harley Davidson that we
Hmm.
moved in from the Midwest to help mature the business, kind of in every way from an operations perspective.
What's the hardest thing that you have to do when you become a company that matures like this?
I mean, it's interesting because you know, we get a lot of visits now from really interesting, or calls from interesting outfits that want to see how we have sort of stuck to our brand values while we've grown,
Hmm.
because they maybe you know, have to fight that fight. Even people like Nike and other folks. Um, that seems to be really easy for us. Like, we're so committed to the product being magnificent. Rob is not like flexible on, yeah, let's just do a throwaway thing, right? I mean, he's the most dedicated, detailed, committed guy. I mean, it's not like he's taking his foot off the gas because, you know, we've had some success. It's just more. It actually empowers us weirdly to commit further to what we love, and to quality and detail, and obviously how the car looks, but how it's made. So that's not really a struggle for us. Um, that part. It's making sure that the culture of people in the business are the way we want. One of the things I struggle with, personally, is this sort of fear that as you grow a group of people, you lose this very enthusiastic culture that you have as a small business, right? Where everybody's a fan of what you do, and everyone stays late. I don't mean just that we can squeeze a lot of work out of people, but I was always worried about, well, how do you maintain that as you grow in orders of magnitude like we did. But it's interesting because it's worked out just fine, and I imagine maybe because from Rob and myself, I mean, we're complete lunatics for what we do. It's not
Hmm.
like, not just a gig. It's not just we're starting a business to start a business or to make a few dollars. It's kind of to support our habits in a sense, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
we keep playing with our toys, we have to make this place successful, right? So, and I think that's sort of infectious to a lot of folks. So, that was a big one. That was a big concern: is how do we maintain the focus on people being enthusiastic, which makes the cars quality very high. There's still a lot of hand craftsmanship here. It's not like there's nothing robotic. So people um, execute very differently when they love what they're up to versus when they're just showing up to work, right? And so if you should come here sometime
I'd love
to
to.
to
Yeah.
to this place. You'll just walk around. You just sort of feel it. You see the looks on everyone's faces. You see how they approach things, and yeah, that's worked quite well. But so our focus, is on the stuff that's not always as fun, which is the details, all the back office stuff and HR and finance and all that is critical. I mean, it's the backbone of the business to some degree. So
650
that's the
people
stuff
now.
we see.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a lot of people to think about. It's not just you
A
and
lot of
Rob.
people that think, yeah, and it's like unfortunately, I get to spend equal time with product development and cool car stuff as I do, attorneys and employment law and blah blah blah, all that stuff. Right? It's just
Yeah.
comes with the territory.
You were buying and selling electricity in Michigan before this whole adventure started, weren't you?
I was, yeah,
And
yeah.
before that, though, I want to get to the good stuff here. Before that, years before that, you were helping park exotic cars in Dearborn, Michigan,
I was that.
at a dealership owned by now, a mentor of yours, a hero of yours, Bob Schneider. In the shadow of Ford Motor Company, you were parking F40s and Cosworth Escorts and Jaguar XJR 15s,
Uh-huh.
and you were and then you got into a 964,
Yeah,
a mint
yeah.
green 964, and
The mint green 964.
the world changed. Your world
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah. Well, it changed first by showing up and sort of meeting my heroes, right? So
Hmm.
I've been a car lunatic since birth, right? But to go and drive. So there's there's a small Ferrari dealer in Dearborn, Michigan, really small. And they had a lot of these fabulous. I mean, Bob it has in terms of taste in cars, maybe the best in the world, right? The used cars they had in that place were just the coolest things ever. Even to this day, the coolest things ever. Like you mentioned, XGR 15s, Cosworth Escorts, F40 is another sort of Ferrari product. Um, and so I would go there every day when I was a student and just hover and walk around. Um, and there was, I don't know if they were sick of me just hanging around the place all the time, but the message was, if you're going to come here every day, you may as well work.
Yeah,
So I
you're
started I started working there.
right.
Yeah, and I started driving all these things: 308s, 328s, 348s at the time. It was just a 355 had just come out, and I have to say, I was like, you know, they're great looking, but some of this stuff is kind of not quite what I expected.
Hmm.
And it was always up against a 911 for me, and it was because I drove that 964. So I drove a 92 mint green 964. Was the very first car I drove as an employee of that place, and then everything I drove after that was just kind of not as good. Not as right. Beautiful, stunning, but didn't make a ton of sense. It was coming off of an 80s era, Italian products, right? Which I would say 80s era anything were challenged at the time, but probably with the exception of Porsche.
So I want to focus on that story. You were hanging out at the dealership so often, going to school as a student, as you said. And Bob kind of goes, "Look, if you're going to be here every day, let's get you to do something." So he throws you the keys to this 92 911 mint green vehicle and says, "Follow me," because he's going to go do a car drop.
Yeah, he had to go drop a car off. Yeah, and that was the
Incredible.
car I drove in there. Yeah, and I think the coolest car I had driven until that point was like my mom's Honda Accord or something. So it was
Nothing
life
wrong with
changing
that.
and
Yeah.
life changing and or a Jeep or something. Life changing in a lot of ways, right? You get to drive a Porsche, and then I think I followed, if I remember correctly, a 308 or something, which was also cool. Um, and I just couldn't get over this. It was mint green with this light gray interior and mint green piping. It was ordered by a dealer, Stoddard. I don't think any longer a Porsche dealer. The guy, whoever ordered it, didn't want it when it showed up, and somehow Bob ended up with it. Had no
Wow.
miles, a few hundred miles on it. Yeah, it was a marquee event in my life for sure.
Years later, when you're having conversations with Rob Dickinson, once again, these two car lunatics who are friends, and he's talking about his business and what he wants to do, and you encourage him, and it goes back to that 964, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Tell me that
Well,
story.
he was, I met him. He was doing the first car. The car actually, it was like the shakedown drive. It was like the car is almost done. Um, and we just immediately started. I had a 993 at the time. We immediately started talking about. He said there's a couple of other people interested in these things, and a 964 came up. To me, it just made sense. It has power steering, had ABS brakes. It was a revolutionized car, which was really strange. Porsche did a very weird thing in between 89 and 90. They completely it was a complete re-engineering of the 911 under almost an identical skin. So if you open the front lid, not a single surface in there is the same as the previous year's car.
Hmm.
The suspension was completely rewritten. The whole body structure was rewritten except the exterior. I think you could share doors, you could share windows. It was quite an odd exercise. I'm not sure if that's happened before or since, where they've completely revolutionized the car and made it look virtually identical to the previous one, with the exception of things like bumpers. So it sort of looks like they just changed the bumpers on, from the 3.2 Carrera to the 964, but they've
Right.
changed everything, absolutely everything. HVAC, air conditioning, everything. The whole car was completely rewritten, and it's just a more stout, more modern thing with really fabulous aluminum suspension and all sorts of stuff. So it was kind of like, well, there's a better car underneath, or a probably more appropriate car underneath. Like I said, power steering, air conditioning, ABS brakes, power windows. And they were really cheap at the time. I bought the first donor car for $12,000, and
Wow.
it had 80 to 85,000 miles on it. I mean, they were no one liked 964s at the time, so it was partly was like, well, no one likes these things, so why don't we do that? And it's not like I introduced the concept to Rob, but we went and did it together,
Right.
right? But for me, it was like, we're going to go do one car, and then I was in California to start my tech business. I wasn't this wasn't a business to me. It was a buddy of mine doing a hot rod, right? And
Yeah.
maybe two or three, but not a company, not where we are now.
How did you know, or when did you know that switch had flipped, that it had gone from a buddy of mine doing a couple of cars to, maybe that other business I've got going is not really, maybe I don't have to do that anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the business that I had started and built, it was, it was thrilling to put together a group of people to get on a mission. I really love doing that. That's great, but I didn't care about what we were doing. It was the mission was to start a business and make money, and but it wasn't because I was quite passionate about it. So it was always fascinating to go see how Singer was doing with Rob, and it was turning into a little bit of a thing. It was probably 2016 when we started really. So the DLS thing was just a very lightweight version of what Singer was doing at the time. But the idea that we started to socialize it then and really start working on it, and it was the idea that we would do at the time $1 million car was like, where do I sign? And for me, I knew that there was something here that was beyond the sum of its parts. They're not just looking for a hot rodded car that has higher performance. It was important that it was from us and that it looked and felt like a thing that Rob designed, and then would perform. I was so taken aback by that. And then I would say in 20, I want to say 20, if I remember correctly, 2017, when we first offered people to sign up for DLS, how many people signed contracts and sent deposits instantaneously.
Hmm.
And by that point, the car was 1.8 million. And that for me really solidified, like, there's really something here, that this is unexpected. And this is a brand, the beginnings of a brand, not just, we're hot rodding a car for someone. They've asked us to hot rod a car. We're a hot rodding car. We're not just a services outfit. There's something here that can be repeated.
Yeah,
And that's when that was it for me.
it was the scalability, right? I mean, that was the part where the switch went for you as well.
Well, yeah, but the idea that we were looked at as a our name was important. It
Right.
wasn't just the object.
Right.
I have hot rodded, I've had this outfit hot rod my 911. That wasn't it. It was that you're getting something from Singer, and Singer is taken seriously. And of course, then we launched a partnership with Williams Formula One, and you know, I think our credibility with that car and all of the partnerships we struck to develop that car went even further. So that was it, and that's actually when I started full time. I went and did the DLS car full time. That was a big, you know, rewrite in my life, right? So I'm gonna go do cars full time, like I've wanted to since I was
Back when you were born.
one or something, right? Yeah. No, way before that. Yeah, that was cool, but it was still a little hard to forecast at the time. Like, all right, we're gonna go do 75 cars. It had a beginning and an end. We're gonna start this project. We think we can sell 75 of them, and there's that's our history. We were definitely not thinking past that. We didn't know we'd be here
Is it
for
a
sure.
little bit of perfect timing in a sense that you mentioned earlier, no marketing efforts at all, but all of a sudden you get into TikTok, Instagram stories, social media becomes so much more prevalent in the past decade, maybe even longer, and the sharing that could exist. Because when I talk to teenagers after I talked to Rob Dickinson, I mean, they said, "My God, you talked to Rob at Singer?" And this is not because they
Uh,
read it in a magazine. It's because
well,
they
I
saw
think I think when Rob in 2000, it was 2000, either end of 2009 or early 2010, and he had kind of mocked up a first classic, a first car is orange, and and some pictures were taken from that. And I think the timing there was perfect. It was sort of the advent of social media, and
right.
it went viral as much as an old car would. And that's actually how I saw it. I think
Hmm.
that was quite perfect timing. In our case, I think it's a ubiquitous um, vehicle for information to get out now, right? It is sort of the method. And of course, if you look at our, the sort of following from us from a social media perspective, it's not a bunch of our customers, it's a bunch of kids. You get a
Right.
bunch of kids looking at effectively looking at old 911s. I mean, our cars are very special, but I think if you're not necessarily into them, it just looks like an old 911, right? So yeah, pretty cool that we have teenagers showing up taking selfies at our factory, in front of cars. You think it was a Lamborghini factory or something.
Yeah. You have 1.1 million followers on Instagram alone on the official
Yeah,
account. I mean, who needs marketing?
yeah, and we're going to start. I think we found a some gaps in some storytelling and other things. Some people don't really know what's under the skin, in terms of the cars and the people, and we just haven't had time to really fit and do that. So we're gonna, it also sort of leaves out a lot of the work. So we have a lot of employees and so on who do so much fabulous stuff that doesn't really get a lot of exposure. So we're going to do a better job of that going forward. Um, and of course, as we grow into it's it helps the storytelling, right, to do some of that.
So when we look, and you mentioned your partnership with Williams Formula One, and I went to Le Mans last year, and I saw folks walking around with Singer jackets on at Le Mans. I mean, you have really kind of spread all over the globe from that perspective, from the partnership perspective. How important are those now?
Yeah, look, it's
Tom
the
Brady was right.
yeah, yeah, it'll be there next week. It is critical that when we approach something new, it's the best thing we could possibly execute with what we know at the time. So the idea that we would go into the world of Formula One to really pursue, the material science, the way they approach some of these things, their ability to forecast what happens to materials under pressure. I don't know how common that is. Maybe in aerospace, rocketry or something, but certainly in the automotive world, they really, really push the limits of designing and really understanding these things. And we knew that we had to really stress a few things to get performance out of the engine um, and also get connected to the right suppliers. So it's been a theme since. So they did a lot of engineering for us. That they're not a supplier or anything along those lines, but that if we're going to approach something, whatever that is, that we couldn't have. There isn't a better option at the time. So it has been very important in terms of suppliers doing business with folks who are generally used to working on really high volumes. So people like Bosch and Brembo and Michelin, to get them to commit the way they've committed to our work is very fascinating. That level. So it means we have to be a good customer to people who are used to dealing with much larger organizations. It's taught us a lot of lessons, but it's also changed the quality of what we do. I mean, now all of our new everything we do that now and what's coming has modern ABS, traction control, stability control, just like a new car. Thanks to our work with Bosch and Mala. So I think continuing to sort of punch above our weight there is going to be part of the brand, ongoing.
Yeah, wonderful. A couple of other things. You have a full internship program that includes a rotation throughout departments. Yep. This year's class has just begun with 35 interns. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's the product of one of our fabulous team members, a guy named Michael Henderson, who really designed that here. And it's not hard to find people very, very passionate about cars and about Singer, and to be able to bring generally very young sort of upstarts into here to be it's not just it's not just so that they can get a taste of it. They actually tend to be part of the team in one way or another, and there's a lot of flexibility for them. So if they'd like to be in paint or in engineering or on the sales side, they have a lot of optionality. It's really cool, and to see the look on their faces when they're here, right? I mean, it's quite a thrill. Um, and in some cases, we've ended up hiring out of those groups. That's ultimately the idea. Sometimes they're just very young, right? And they're not ready for it could be the beginning of university for them. But we stay close to them. So yeah, it's great. And I have to tell you, you know, if I had that chance at that age to come and work at a place like this, not to compliment ourselves, but I mean, if you go out
Yeah.
on our shop floor, it's super cool, right? A lot of, you know, hand built cars out there, very colorful, terrific things.
And tell me about the Singer University.
So a lot of the work here has become increasingly scientific. So we've taken our quality standards and we have made them programmatic, meaning when it comes to things like general assembly, piecing the cars back together. Um, we've really standardized how that works. And there's build stages and work instructions and torque values and all that. It's not just a hot rod shop, but there are areas where craftsmanship is required. So obviously upholstery and paint, a few other areas where you need experience, you need skill, you need feel, you need time, and even the folks in upholstery, leather has different thicknesses and stretches differently and does all this stuff. But the finished product has to be the same. So it's a training program basically for every area of the business so that we can help accelerate those learnings and do it in a work environment. It's not like they just sit in a classroom or anything, right?
Right.
But yeah, we find people who are just love to be a part of that area of the business, so we help ramp them up into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. A lot of people wouldn't know you are a global luxury brand. It's not just cars. Tell me a little bit about the watch company. What's the update on that?
So the watch company it was the endeavor was led by the product as this Singer, meaning like we want to do something really, really magnificent, which happens to be unusual, and let's just do it and see what happens. Right? That was really very similar to how the car side got started. And Rob got hooked up with this terrific guy named Marco. He was the head designer at Panerai watches, and
Mm.
they went and designed a watch around a very unique movement a few years back, and let's go make it. So there it was, and then there was this product sort of landed on the world, and that's what started the watch business. It's small, and it's meant to stay small, and it's very low volume, very high value, and it's a bit of a kind of a toe in the water for us to see, if we can apply the same philosophy um, that we do on the car side with anything else. And watches, they're analog, right? They're like an analog car, have a lot of the same principles, applied there. So it's a lot of fun. It's not the mission isn't to take over the world with it. It's to continue doing these fabulous things in low volume.
Yeah, but there was a mission once about cars that had the same idea when it started.
Yeah, we're gonna do five. That was
I
funny.
mean, right?
Well, I mean, it's funny. About that time, we approached Cosworth to do engines. Back then, that was for the first 964, and we knew we had three interested customers, but we told them we had five, and that was the exaggeration. Was we might be able to do five of these, eventually, right? We needed to be taken seriously, and now it's like, we need 400, right? It's a
Yeah.
different conversation when you're talking about the build, hand building 400 engines. I mean, that doesn't really happen
No.
outside of outside of motorsport now, outside of
Right.
NASCAR or things, right? It
Right.
just
Right.
doesn't happen. Not
Yeah.
in those volumes.
If I placed my order today, when could I get my car?
Yikes.
Yikes.
Uh,
This is what Rob said a couple years ago.
well, since we're friends, maybe we can do. I'm just kidding. It's 2027 about
No
right now
way.
for a turbo. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And the turbo, I think, is a little bit later. Yeah, we got a lot of cars to build.
A lot of cars to build. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, we're doing now about 12 a month, and that will go up to about 16. Um, I think by the end of the year.
okay. Can you ramp
Yeah.
up any faster than that in your 10-year plan?
No, I mean the idea isn't to, this isn't we're not chasing volume and
Right.
any of that. It's really about, like I said, low volume, high value, really focusing on exquisite execution, right? So that has a natural rate limiter. You will not go faster than, you know, the 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 hand built stuff, the body, the paint, the upholstery, it will not go faster than it goes. And that's fine. That's what our clients get, right? They get this huge amount of focus on the thing that they help design,
Yeah.
and we go execute. So no, we don't really intend to, not unless, we come up with a new idea or something. But
Right.
yeah.
You're doing a new, or you're launching the turbo study. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we launched the Turbo Study. We have a bunch of them. So we have Goodwood coming up, Goodwood Festival of Speed, which is I think is our ninth year
Wow.
there. And then I can't even tell you how many Monterey years. So Monterey soon thereafter. So it will be a bunch of turbo. A lot of turbocharged stuff there, which has been a new flavor for us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. We talked to Rob originally about that. Um, is success sometimes also invites criticism? Do you find that as you have more customers now, or maybe the wait time is what it is, as you just said, do you start getting things like, oh, come on, how can this take so long? Or, oh, I didn't like that or that. I mean, right? When it's just two guys building a car, nobody really has an opportunity to say much.
Well, it's funny because we like I said earlier, we sold more than we could possibly have forecasted, which is good news. The bad news is operationally we were unprepared, so we
Yeah.
didn't know what it would take to be able to deliver those. So we were very, very late for a long time with a bunch of cars, and that was because we weren't prepared for the amount of sales, and the level of preparation was something that we didn't quite understand. So manufacturing effectively and efficiently, I think, no matter what you're manufacturing, is difficult when you have many, many suppliers. Um, there's always going to be a problem if you're relying on 150 external businesses. It could be they deliver the wrong thing. It could be they have a fire in their building. It could be whatever it is. There's always going to be something, right? So now we understand that, we're prepared for that, but at the time we weren't. And so it took forever to get a car done from us before, but that's because we were terrible at building cars. Now we know exactly what we're doing. It's just a very long line. So I kind of equate it to, I don't know if you've ever been to like I mean, it's light years ago for me, but go to like a bar or something that has a
Yeah.
line outside, and you
Sure.
go inside, there's no one there, right? There's just they're just trying to make it look like they're busy. In our case, it took a long time, and that's because we were not good at it. And but of course, as we got better at it, the orders picked up.
Yeah.
So as we became more reliable and more predictable and all that stuff, people had a lot more confidence. So it's now aligned because there's a lot of people in front of you, right? And a lot of cars on the floor.
A lot of cars in the bar now.
Yeah, a few hundred cars
Right.
in process at
Right.
any given time. Yeah.
Wow. When we have this conversation, Maz, final thing here in 2034, What are we going to be talking about?
I can't tell you. Yeah, I kind of knew you were going to ask that. Yeah, it's like I said, we're now looking down the road.
Yeah.
We've built something to some degree by accident, and the phase of the business we're in now is to um, build a foundation for a long time. It's not just to fulfill our orders. It's definitely to um, uh, uh, take that's not just the goodwill that we have, but the brand that we've built, and really solidify it and harness it for a much longer vision. And so right now we're in the solidifying period, but then the execution of that will come. I'm sure we'll have another call.
Yeah. Yeah.
At some
for
point
sure.
to discuss. Yeah.
You're a long way from the dealership in Dearborn and dropping off that mint green 92 911. Oh, how the road has been an interesting one, Maz. We look forward to seeing where it bends and dips and winds going forward.
Yeah. It'll be interesting for sure. Thank you for the time.
No, thank you. Thanks for being on the program. Thanks for telling your story. And we'll see you at Pebble Beach.
Yeah. See you soon. Thanks, Jason.
Great. Thank you.